So as we've seen before, when you first log into Splunk, you're going to land on the Home app. So let's just look at some of the sections of the Home app here. The first thing that the Home app presents is the Splunk Bar. So when you look at the Splunk Bar, you're going to have the Splunk logo. So the Splunk logo is there. If you navigate out away from the Home app, for example, and then you wanted to come back to the Home app, you can just click on the Splunk Bar to do, the Splunk logo to do that. And then the next thing you have here is the account menu. So if you wanted to change your settings and preferences, you can always change those using the account menu. And then the settings menu has information about configuration, administration, and monitoring. That's one of the most important menus when it comes to administering Splunk. And then, of course, you have as well the messages menu, which contains system error messages. And then you have the activity menu that contains shortcuts to jobs and triggered alerts. And then the other portion of it is the apps panel. We already spoke about Splunk apps before, demonstrated them. So we've seen the apps panel already. So it just contains a list of apps that are installed and visible on your instance. And as you would notice, it contains a search and reporting app. This is a very, very important app because, as we said, it's a default app that you're going to use to search and analyze your data in Splunk. Now, the third part of it is the Explore Splunk panel. So this one just basically contains links to useful information. And then you can also add a home dashboard here. So for example, let's say that you had some very important KPI in your organization that you were monitoring, and then you wanted to have a dashboard for that. If you create an important dashboard, you can always add it to the home app so that anytime you log into Splunk, you can see it. Now let's look at the account menu in a little bit more detail. Under the account menu, you can change your account settings. With account settings, you can change your full name from administrator, because when you install Splunk and then you log in as administrator, that's going to be the default full name, but you can change that. You can also update your email address or change the password. Now, under preferences, there are a few things you can do. You can change your time zone. When you install Splunk, it's going to come with a default system time zone. If you want that to reflect the time zone of your area, you can always make that change. And then the other thing is the default application. We said, for example, that when you log into Splunk, you're going to land on the Home app, but that's not going to be the case. That's just because the Home app is a default app. You can change that to any app of your choice. And then there's readability settings for the SPL editor. This just really helps you. The SPL is Splunk Search Processing Language, which we're going to see at some point. So if you want the readability to be improved, you can use this menu to change it. So you can configure a search assistant that gives you guidance on how to write searches. And then you can choose a theme for your search bar as well. Under that, you can also do configurations that is going to add line numbers on your search query as you write it, or auto format your search so that you're going to have each portion of your search on a different line. So let's look at the settings menu here at a very high level just to see a few things that you can do. The first sub-menu item we're going to look at here is a knowledge menu. Under the knowledge menu, you can create and manage knowledge objects. So you want to create safe searches, reports, alerts, lookup, field extractions. Those are all knowledge items, and in order to create and manage those, you're going to use the knowledge sub-menu. And one thing to note about the knowledge sub-menu is that it's always going to be available for every role, being in the user role, the power role, or the admin role. But if you have just a user role, admin role, or power role, this is the only sub menu that you're going to see, maybe and a little bit more. But if you have the admin role, you see all the other sub menu items, data system, and all that. So if you happen to log into Splunk and then you go under the settings menu and you don't see everything that we are seeing on the screen now, you think is a problem. No, it's not a problem. It's just because you are not logged in as an administrator. So the second thing we're going to see here is the system sub-menu. Under the system sub-menu, this is going to be maybe things that you want to check related to the system itself. So you can verify your system settings. You can, check configure and check licensing under the sub-menu. You can also do things like restart Splunk. So if you wanted to restart Splunk on the web UI, you're going to do that under the system sub-menu. And then the data sub-menu, quite a few things that you can do there. Some of them include things like creating indexes and configuring data inputs if you are getting data, from news sources. And then, of course, you can configure data forwarding and receiving. If you choose, say, you want to use your instance as a heavy forwarder, then you might maybe be receiving data from one source and then forwarding the data out for indexing. That kind of configuration should be done here. And then if your deployment is a distributed deployment, then you can use the distributed environment in order to, manage that distributed deployment. Distributed deployment simply just means that your Splunk instances are spread across multiple machines. So your instance is not on a single machine. So under this, you can do things like configure forwarder management, which relates to the deployment server as we saw before. You can also do indexer clustering. You can do distributed search in situations where you have one search head maybe talking to multiple indexers in the backend. And then the last thing, sorry, not the last thing, we're going to see a little bit more. We're going to see about users and authentication as well. Under this, you can create and manage users. If you are the administrator of your instance, you have the ability to add new users. This is where you can do that. And then you can also configure different authentication methods. Another things that you're going to see here, this is just a shortcut for you to add data to your instance. So if you were to configure those configurations to get data from some source, then you can also go to add data and you can do that. And then of course we saw that the monitoring console is also a Splunk component. So this is where you find the monitoring console as well. So now we are connected to our Splunk instance and we are on the Home app. Again, as we said, you see that there are different sections of the Home app. You have the Splunk logo that we spoke about here. And all of this is on the Splunk Bar, of course, where you also have these menu items. Here you have your account menu, messages, settings, activity menu. And then on this side, you have your Splunk Bar and, of course, the Explore Splunk panel. So the first thing we're going to do here is see how you can change user settings. This is important and you should know the kind of settings that you can update here again. So if you come to the user settings here, you can change your full name, you can add an email address, and you can change your password from here. So right now the full name is showing as administrator. I'm just going to change that to admin. And then if I go back and navigate to Splunk Home, you see that that's now showing as admin. But I rather prefer to have it showing as administrator. So I'm going to put it back to administrator. And then I'm going to save it again. And then remember I said anytime you want to navigate back to the Home app, just click on the Splunk logo. It's going to take you to the Home app. So you see that now it is showing back as administrator. Now let's go there and look again. We're not going to make any changes here, but of course note that as we indicated, the email address and the password, if you wanted to change them, you could do that as well. Now let's look at the account preferences. Under the global tab here, you're going to see the time zone, the default application, and then the theme. We discussed these two here, and we said that when you install Splunk, it's going to come with a default time zone. And if you wanted to change to another time zone, maybe depending on the area you are in, you can always do that here. So I'm going to change this to Eastern time. So if I do this and select Eastern time and apply, then that's the time that is now going to reflect on my Splunk instance. I can also change the default app. Remember we said when you log on the interface here, it puts you on the Home app. That is because the Home app is the default application. If you wanted to land on another application, you can always pick it from here so that anytime you log in, that's the app you will be on. This can be very important if you have an app that is used by your department in a situation where multiple departments are using the same Splunk instance. That's the kind of case that we discussed before. So that anytime you log in, you want to be on the app that is associated to your department and you directly do your work instead of logging on and maybe being on the Home app and trying to look for where your app is. Okay, so we're not going to make any changes there. And then here, of course, you can change the theme of your interface as well. You realize that before I had a dark theme. I actually reverted it just because I wanted to do this demonstration. So there are two themes you can use. You can use a light theme and a dark theme. So I'm just going to pick dark theme here and then I'll apply it. Now, if I navigate back to the Home app, then you see that my theme has actually changed. Now it's showing the dark theme. Now let's go back to preferences again. We also spoke about the SPL editor. So when you start writing Splunk search processing language, here you can make some settings to make sure that your readability is good. You can disable the search assistant. If you don't want, you can use none. By default, it is compact. You can change to full mode. You can activate line numbers. By default, it's deactivated. Search auto format also deactivated. But I'm not going to go deeply into this because we're going to see it as we discuss the search language. And then theme as well. You can change the theme. Remember the theme we just saw under global is the theme of your interface, but you can also change the theme of the search bar where you're actually writing your searches. If you want it to be default, light, dark, or maybe black on white, you can also do that. Okay, we're not going to change anything here. And then here is the settings menu that we said is the most important menu. Here you have your knowledge objects, you have system, and all these other sub menus here. And we said that if you have the admin role, that is when you see everything because you have access to everything on your instance. But if you only have the user role or the power role, you will not be able to see all these submenu items. You just see the knowledge submenu and a little bit more. So we are going to see that as well.